All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Daily December 2020. This is day 26. I wanted to make this video a couple days ago. I think the 24th was actually when I became aware of what I'm going to be responding to. But I wanted to do, it was the night before Christmas, and then yesterday was Christmas, and so I had to do my Christmas haul. By the way, the one thing I forgot to mention in my Christmas haul video was this. This is something that my brother and his girlfriend got for me. The box is cool because that's actually Lord Dracon's power coin that they're there, which I thought was cool. But what's inside it is these. These are a set of crystal dice. Like this is what is this? This is a D6. Try and get it close. I have no idea how to read these yet. I haven't had a whole lot of chance to look through them, but they're really cool. So I may try using those in one of my upcoming games. But yeah, overall super cool and fun. I'm gonna try and put that back up. So I did want to mention that. But now to the real topic. Taking20 is an RPG channel. One of its primary focuses was Pathfinder, and then basically it kind of split itself right down the middle of Pathfinder and D&D stuff. And they're relatively large. They've got something like 250 plus subscribers. They're one of the more well-known RPG channels on YouTube. I actually, full disclosure, I actually have a like itty bitty teeny weeny bit of history with Taking20, because one of their most popular videos is why the Matt Mercer effect is bad for D&D. And back when I was still making responses to videos like that. I wrote this super long post on his video going, well, congratulations, you've just jumped on the bandwagon. For those of you who don't know, literally every 6 months, give or take about a month, a new channel will come out with a video about how Critical Role is ruining Dungeons and Dragons. They all use the exact same arguments. They're all really bad arguments. They're all based on faulty logic and just in general are poorly made by people that are effectively just angry that these people keep getting all this praise and everything while they don't, is what I have personally found when I watch these videos. So I made a post explaining this and going, congratulations, none of the ideas that you put up here are even unique ideas. Like literally, you've taken the exact same ideas from this video and this video and this video. Congratulations, you're petty. I believe that comment has been deleted because I couldn't find it when I was looking through my comments forever ago. So whether or not he knows who I am or not, I already am going to have a slightly negative opinion of him because he's made ignorance statements about something that I really enjoy. And instead of attempting to, discuss them or anything like that, or just accepting that, I was a super fanboy that said, some stuff that he didn't like, he got rid of my comment. So before this gets any further, I am already predisposed to not agree with his opinion. But he recently made a really popular video that everyone in the RPG scene has been talking about. And that's actually how I found it, because I don't generally watch a lot of his videos. Again, already have a predisposition to not like his opinion. But I saw someone else made a response to his video where they were talking about the points he made. And so after watching this response video and then going back and actually watching his video, I wanted to throw my own 2 cents in, because the issues that he talks about in there are issues that I saw constantly when I used to do the convention circuit here in Wisconsin, and when I used to help run conventions. I was very connected with the Wisconsin RPG community, and because this is where Dungeons and Dragons was born, we have a really vibrant RPG community. But so to kind of explain his thing, the video itself is called "I'm Quitting Pathfinder to 2E Because of This Issue." And the video itself basically is him talking about what he calls the illusion of choice. Now, anyone that's watched my D&D deep dive, we've talked about the illusion of choice as well. And I talk about it in a game design perspective. I mentioned the things like, if you give people to the 2 choices, but there's one that's just always better, that's not a choice. And so I'm very familiar with the idea of the illusion of choice. And he mentions that Pathfinder 2nd edition, which is the newest version of it, it's only been out for like a year or something like that. It's very, very much in its infancy. He mentioned he's been playing Pathfinder to 2E for over a year now. He DMs an adventure set in there. I wasn't 100% sure, because I'm not super up to date on Pathfinder 2E, but it sounds like he's running an adventure path or a pre-written adventure, kind of, because he mentioned the title of it and everything. If you are more familiar with what he does, feel free to put stuff in the comments below to explain some of the things I just don't know. But he said the issue that he came to is that his players are in Tier 3, which it sounds like the tier system in 2nd edition Pathfinder is the same as 5th edition D&D, which is Tier 1 goes from 1 to 4, Tier 2 is about 5 to 10, Tier 3 is 11 to 16, and Tier 4 is 17 to 20. Is what I'm assuming. So he's into the Tier 3. His players are around level 12, it sounds like. And he's found that whenever they get into combat, they do the exact same thing. He even actually likened it to an MMO. I like MMOs. I play them often. So what he described was a rotation. If you've ever played in an MMO, you'll be familiar with the idea of a rotation, which is basically when you start combat, you have all these different abilities you can use, but you're generally going to be limited in your ability choice by a number of things. There's things like the global cooldown, so you can't just go bum. You have to wait a little bit between each ability, and some abilities will buff others. And so what just about every RPG on the market eventually develops for every class and every subclass is in there is you will have what's called a rotation, which is I do this ability, then this ability, then this ability, then this ability. And the point of figuring out your rotation is maximizing whatever it is you are supposed to do. For DPS classes, it means getting the most damage in the lowest amount of time. For tanking classes, it can just mean, getting the most amount of threat out there so that everybody's attacking you. For healer classes, it's generally, getting the most healing out there to keep people alive. That's what your rotations are for. And he mentions that in 2nd edition, once you get to high enough levels, you have a rotation. Every swashbuckler is going to do this, then this, then this, then this. Every druid is going to do this, then this, then this, then this. And he just said it got really boring because every single combat was exactly the same. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because, again, that is such a common thing to hear for people that play specifically. We used to hear it all the time from the Pathfinder Society people. I've talked about Pathfinder Society before. It's Paizo's. They're the people that make Pathfinder. It's Paizo's organized play program. I'm not particularly fond of it because it's extremely limiting. It's extremely restrictive, and it rewards. It doesn't just reward. It generally forces you to play the most optimized character possible. If you have a suboptimal character, people will literally kick you out of kick you off at the table if you do not have a perfectly optimized character. And I know this because it has happened to me, or no, it hasn't happened. I haven't been kicked off. I have been chastised for not playing an optimized character. And I have friends that have actually been kicked off kicked out to the tables because they came with a non-optimized character. So what he's describing here, this kind of thing was like combat is always the same, is extremely common in Pathfinder itself. It was relatively common in D&D 3.5. And it's extremely common in the convention scene, to the point where I was able to figure out that issue, and I started hearing about it within a couple months of me starting to become really involved in the convention scene. For him, it took him close to a year because, from what I gather, most of his interactions are with his players at his game, and then actually, actually like reading the book. For reference, I actually do own the Pathfinder 2nd edition core rulebook. I have not read through the whole thing because this one core rulebook is just under 640 pages. It is massive. So no, I've not gone through the entire thing, but I've skimmed through it. And again, I'm familiar with Pathfinder in general. So I basically looked for the differences between original Pathfinder and 2nd edition, and then looked at a couple of the classes because they are kind of cool. Yeah, I'm assuming it took him a year to get to this point, mostly because it is something that tends to be a little bit more prominent when you get to higher levels, and it's extremely prominent in organized play because they limit your combat encounters in as far as what you can and cannot do. The D&D Adventures League has a very, very similar problem, especially as you get to higher levels. However, there's a few more tools that the Adventures League gives to their writers that allows them to vary things a little bit more, and we'll talk about some of those tools than the Pathfinder Society people get. So it's just something that happens quicker for most of them. And Taking20 put most of the emphasis on the system itself. He decided that the system is just poorly written as it is now. But because of that, he's not going to play it anymore. Because, again, I have heard this particular argument before, over and over and over again. I used to actually, I was actually in charge of all the organized play games for a local convention for 2 years. So I got to deal with the Pathfinder Society people, and I personally organized all the Adventures League stuff. Tried to get some Shadowrun missions going on, and those, there was politics involved in that, and that was a nightmare. But I'm extremely familiar with this problem. I've had many people to talk to me about it. I've had people from the Adventures League to talk to me about it. And it was always would go back to, just 5e is just written really poorly. And so Pathfinder is it's broken. And once you get to high levels, there's really only one way you can play any class. And my response to that is always no. Your issue isn't with the system, it is with your win conditions and your lose conditions. And I've mentioned before in passing, one of the things I learned playing fourth edition, which I still think is one of the more innovative RPGs on the market, despite the fact it's not on the market anymore. I think fourth edition did a lot more for the RPG market as a whole than almost any other edition of the D&D other than fifth edition. Because it changed a lot of things and it allowed you. One of the things it excelled at is creating win scenarios and lose scenarios for encounters that weren't you. The win scenario being you kill everyone, and the lose scenario being you all die. And it's emphasized in fourth edition itself that you can't really rely. Especially once you get to about midway through midway through the second tier that I can't remember what it's called. And then once you get to the third tier, the epic tier, it's completely impossible. You cannot kill fourth edition characters that are above about level 23. They don't die. Not unless you do like Rocks Fall, everybody die stuff. So what you learn in fourth edition, which he wouldn't, Taking20 wouldn't have learned because he vehemently despised fourth edition, or at least that's what I get from the way he talks about it, is you cannot base all of your encounters around the idea of winning means they die, losing means you die. If every single combat encounter you run is always, okay, here are the monsters, here's your team, whoever loses all their hit points first loses, then yes, your players are going to do the exact same thing every single time. The reason they do that is because you've asked them to do the exact same thing every time. You've given them the exact same problem, and they've already discovered the solution to that problem. Now, you can use different monsters that have different abilities and do all these really neat creative things. But if the win condition is always make their hit points go away before your hit points to do, then you are literally giving them the same problem over and over and over again. And when you ask someone the same question over and over again, and you give them the same problem over and over again, yeah, for a little bit, they will try to find different solutions to this same problem, simply because we like to be challenged. And once you solve a problem, it's kind of boring to just do the exact same thing as he has already discovered. But eventually, they will stop trying different solutions because they've already found the best solution, the easiest solution. So this idea of, well, combat, and that is what his entire video about is combat. You do the exact same thing. Nothing else about this system, not really talking about the role-playing elements or anything like that. This entire video, and the reason he is quitting Pathfinder second edition is because combat is extremely repetitive. And there is some truth to that. Paizo's been interviewed quite a few different times, and they have point blank stated Pathfinder is a combat simulator. While D&D pitches itself as groups as a storytelling, and people have argued whether or not that's actually true. Matt Colville has an especially bad take, in my personal opinion, about how D&D, specifically 5th edition, but D&D in general, is not group storytelling in any way, shape, or form. And I've rebutted that on here. But D&D pitches itself as groups just a storytelling, where Pathfinder, it's a combat simulator. That's all it is. Yes, you can tell amazing stories using Pathfinder. The same way you can tell amazing stories using the D&D the third and the 3.5, which was also effectively a combat simulator. 3 and 3.5 were very, very heavily focused on combat more than anything else. Which is why Pathfinder was a combat simulator. So it is a valid critique. This combat simulator isn't very fun. The combat in this simulator isn't very fun, so I'm not going to use this combat simulator. That's a perfectly legitimate response to that. And I don't think any of his logic in that particular instance is wrong. The issue I have is, again, if you don't want your players doing the exact same thing every single time, then don't give them the exact same problem every single time. If the win condition is always they die first, they're going to do whatever it takes to make the other people's hit points disappear the fastest. However, as soon as you start changing the win and the lose conditions, you change how they play. If the lose condition is no longer everybody dies, and that's when you lose, they will start changing the way they do things. One of my absolute favorite ways to introduce a different lose condition is hostages. Instead of lose condition is the party dies, lose condition is somebody else dies. So at that point, they're no longer focusing on how do I kill these people as quickly as possible. Now their focus is on how do I keep these people safe. And the win condition at that point can involve every single one of the monsters being alive at the end of the encounter. If they can get away with the people that are going to be killed, then they're going to win the encounter, no matter how much damage they've done to the other team. And that is just one change in the win and lose conditions. I'm not saying you should never have combat where they have to kill the bad guys. It's a lot of fun. And a lot of combat encounters are built around the idea that one side needs to be reduced to nothing in order for the other side to win. That's very, very common. It's why it happens so often. But if you're tired of people doing the exact same thing, give them a different problem to solve. Like I said, hostages or some sort of group they have to protect is a great change up to the win-lose conditions. Especially since they can still win the same way. They can just kill everyone on the other side. It's no longer the optimal way to win, because there's a good chance while they're using all their time to take out the bad guys are going to use some of their time to take out the hostages. So you change what the optimal strategy is, but that old strategy, if they really do enjoy that, they can still do that strategy. However, if they want the optimal strategy, then they're going to have to change and adapt. Other changes, it can be an attrition style thing. They have to survive for so long, or they have to inflict so many losses on the other team before something good happens to them. Perhaps they have to hold out for reinforcements to come. So it's no longer about killing as many people as possible. It's about limiting the amount of damage the party takes. Another one that's really fun is they have to get somewhere in a certain amount of time. It's really common in more kind of modern settings to have some sort of a bomb or a delayed fuse or something like that, to where, okay, we have to leave, but we're also in combat, and the enemies there are going to do everything they can to just outright kill you. and you can fight them back, but every turn you spend fighting them is one turn less you can spend getting away from the explosion, from whatever is going to end your party. Another one that I really, really love, and this comes directly from 4th edition, was the idea of skills challenges with combat built in. There was a really cool thing that Chris Perkins used to do back in 4th edition, where he would just get groups together that hadn't played before, and he would run them through a game. One of the ones he did was, I want to say it was the Robot Chicken people. I'm not 100% sure, but it was a group like that made a television show or something. And he got them together, and he made them all characters, and he ran them through a relatively short dungeon delve. I think the whole thing lasted maybe 3 or 4 hours, so it was like a single one-shot session. But the final kind of battle for this session wasn't a pure combat encounter. What it was is there was this crystal. And the crystal was a skills challenge. Basically, they had to get so many successes before they got so many failures. I think it was they had to make 6 successes before they got the 3 failures. And there were various different things that different skills they could use to get those successes, and different skills would give you different DCs that you had to beat. And what it was there was this crystal that was going to be summoning elementals into the plane. And so their goal was to stop this crystal from summoning the elementals. Well, the crystal had already started summoning elementals. So they rolled for an initiative, and then they had to choose, each character had to choose, do I want to try and use my abilities to try and get us successes? Or do I want to use my abilities to fight off the elementals that are already here? If they failed, it would summon a super powerful elemental, and they would have to deal with that. If they succeeded, all the elementals would be gone, and they would win. So no longer was it whichever side kills the other one first. It was, okay, the other group is going to be doing everything they can to draw this out, because every round got closer and closer to the final summoning. So the other side was basically playing a waiting game. They were going to do anything they could to just slow you down, while the players had to try and beat the clock and use these skill challenges while at the same time fighting this war of attrition effectively. And it was really, really interesting. All the guys there absolutely adored it. They thought it was the most fun thing that they'd ever done. Which is an extremely common thing to happen when you play D&D with Chris Perkins. That's just the effect he has on people when you play D&D with Chris Perkins. Yeah, all of these are really, really great ways to change how combat works. I have my own kind of skills challenge thing I do. I call it cinematic combat, where instead of us sticking to, okay, we have an action, a bonus action, and a move, and then a reaction, I go, okay, describe to me what your character does as if you were describing an action movie scene. And then once you describe what you want to do, I'll have you roll. And once you roll, I'll describe how close to the picture in your head that you got. I don't really worry about how many hit points creatures have. It's just, okay, how cool can you make this sound? And then can you translate that cool into good dice rolls? And it's had a strange response, but it's generally it's a nice way for me to kind of change how combat works. And that's kind of the issue that I'm seeing with taking 20. Like I said, he is not the first person that have ever that has ever described this situation to me. It's extremely common. Like I said, I heard it the most from Pathfinder Society people or former Pathfinder Society people that were moving over to the Adventures League. Because Pathfinder Society, the people that just keep playing, like that aspect of Pathfinder Society where they go, okay, as long as I build my character correctly, I just do the same thing and then I win. That idea of winning is really, really common in a lot of core Pathfinder Society players. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's a different way to play. And it's perfectly fine that they enjoy the game like that. I personally don't, which is why I don't play Pathfinder Society games. But there is a market for that, and it can feel good to know no matter what situation you get thrown into, you have this set thing of actions that you take, and it makes you feel in control. It makes you feel powerful. It's kind of why we play RPGs. You know, we want to feel in control. We want to feel powerful. So yeah, that's perfectly fine. But like I said, the solution to this is not, oh, the game is broken. The solution is no, you as a DM need to change your tactics. And I tend to put a fair amount of pressure on the DMs simply because, not that I don't think the players have an obligation to ensure that everyone is having a good time. I made an entire video about the idea that players should feel that they need that they need to take steps to ensure people are having a good time. However, the DM has the most opportunities to change things, and quite literally just changing win and lose conditions, even in second edition. Like I said, the book itself is look at this. Look at this book. Look at the artwork. Look at look at the quality of this book. It is brilliant. Pathfinder has been known since its inception to be a very crunchy, numbers fulfilled thing. Because of that, it's written very deliberately. It's written very specifically, but it's very, very well done. I kind of consider games like Pathfinder more engineered than kind of created because of how much work and effort has to go into balancing. I'm not saying 5th edition doesn't do balancing and things like that. What I'm saying is a system that is this rules heavy really requires you to know the rules very, very well if you want to design for it. And because of that, the rules work. I mean, there's no really other way to say it. The rules work because they were designed to work. There's very little wiggle room in this, and they do that on purpose. So if you want your players, and this is for everyone, but Taking20, if you are watching this, which you aren't, you have significantly better things to do with your time. However, if you are watching this, you need to change your win and lose conditions. Just that tiny change will completely flip your game on its head. You will have players that won't like it because when your entire build is built around the idea that every combat encounter, which is the mostly the purpose of your games, which you yourself admitted in that video, Pathfinder is very, very concerned about combat. Their characters are no longer going to be optimal, and a few of them are probably going to want to change the things and change feats and things like that. And I think that's perfectly okay. I've talked about in my D&D deep dives. I like systems that allow you to make changes if you made a mistake in building your character. It's one of the reasons, it's one of the big issues I have with D&D 3 and the 3.5. I'm not sure how big an issue it is in Pathfinder second edition, but I know for first edition, it was really easy to build a useless character, because once you spent your points and everything like that, you were done. So yeah, your players will want to redistribute your points and pick new feats and pick new class features and spells and things like that. But what that does is it no longer creates an optimal build, and that was his big issue with second edition was you had these builds. It didn't matter that there were tons and tons and tons and tons of different feats, and they do feats differently in second edition than they did in first edition. Because of how the synergies worked and everything like that, you would still have, if you want to be this kind of a character, these are the 4 feats that you always take. And if you take any other feats, the character's not going to play the way you're supposed to. He also talked about the spellcasting system, where in Pathfinder Second Edition, you have 3 actions you get to use for your turn, and various abilities will use. Some of them will use 1 action, some will use multiple actions. Some spells will give you the option of using less or more actions to cast that spell, and so the choice you kind of have is: do I want to move this turn, or do I want to use all 3 of my actions to cast this spell? Well, because it doesn't matter how many actions you use when you cast a spell in second edition, it will always use the same number of spell slots. He mentioned, as much as, it's cool that you can use 1 or 2 actions instead of a full 3, no one ever uses less than the 3, because then you're wasting your spell slot. That's the optimal build. You're not allowed to do anything else, and that's where he gets this idea of illusion of choice. No, again, the issue here is not the illusion of choice. It is you keep asking them the same question. You keep presenting them the exact same problem with a different coat of paint. They're always going to solve the problem the same way. As soon as you start varying the problems you present them, there's no longer an optimal build. Now you have to go, okay, do I want to focus on combat stuff and then have to rely on someone else in the party when we have stuff where the goal isn't kill everybody? That's what makes 5th edition specifically, that's what makes it so much fun, is there is no class in 5th edition that can do everything on their own. It's why I make the D&D deep dive, to show you how you can get the most out of the choices you make, not telling you how to make the quote-unquote best choices, explaining all the different choices that exist. TLDR, Taking 20, the problem is not the system. The problem, as much as this may sound a little harsh, the problem is the DM. And it's an extremely common problem. It's not something you should feel self-conscious about or anything like that. It is how you've been trained as a DM to run the things. But you need to expand your horizons a bit, and learn how to create encounters that the win condition is not kill all the bad guys. Start experimenting with other win conditions. Or make the lose condition you kill all the bad guys. As long as you give them the same conditions, they are going to use the exact same solution to that condition, because you've taught them that's the right thing to do. As soon as you start varying things and showing them that, okay, killing all the bad guys is not always what we need to do, it forces them to look at non-combat abilities. Now, again, I have not read all of second edition. I haven't read most of second edition, so I actually don't know what kind of emphasis they put on non-combat abilities. It may be, I do know 3rd edition, there was almost no non-combat abilities. Almost the entirety of the feats were all about combat. All the abilities that you got were all about combat. Anything that happened outside of combat was really limited to skills checks. And they had rules for skills checks. They didn't have options for skills checks. So it was effectively, if you want to do this is the roll that you make. Unlike 5th edition, where you will have non-combat abilities that let you go, okay, well, generally you would have to make this roll, but because of this ability, you can use this to fix that outcome. Yeah, as soon as you stop making the lose condition, everybody dies, and the win condition being all the bad guys are dead, your players will start playing differently. That's how it works. There will be resistance to it at first, because once you take away what their characters were designed to do, they're going to feel powerless and upset, because they have shoehorned their characters into a very specific build because their characters only ever had one thing they had to do, which was kill things. But once you get good at varying things, I'm not saying never make those conditions. I'm saying you need to mix it up, because that will give them an incentive to try different things, to make suboptimal builds, because there is no way to be optimized in everything. But again, in Pathfinder, it's actually very easy for every single class in the game to find a way to optimize for combat. That is not very difficult. In 5th edition, it's not difficult at all if you make all of your players, all of your encounters are just, kill the bad guys. Optimizing things for combat is super easy in 5th edition, easier than in Pathfinder. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. Like I said, Taking20, if you are watching this, again, you have much better things to waste your time on, and I believe I'm like one of several dozen people that have made this, so you're probably not watching this. But if you are, and you ever want to have a powwow where we just kind of talk about different ways to challenge your players, that is my wheelhouse. And I get it from a history of retail management, where I was constantly presented with complex problems, and I constantly had to come up with new ways to do the exact same thing, because anytime I would do something right once, they would take resources away from me, because they would decide I didn't need them, because I was able to do this thing that I shouldn't have been able to do. So I'm very good at coming up with unique solutions and unique ways to challenge people. I would love to have a good conversation with you. We could do it offline. We could do it as just a podcast or something, where you could stream it on your channel or whatever. We could just talk about this, because this is stuff that I really do feel is important for any game master to learn. Whether you play Pathfinder, D&D, Shadowrun, Open Legend, the Dragon Age RPG, Numenera, any thing. Learning how to challenge your players in different ways, and how to reward your players for creating interesting characters by allowing those interesting characters to shine in different circumstances is an essential thing to learn. Anyway, that's all for me today. I will see you guys next time. Tomorrow even. All right? Bye-bye.